Welcome to another episode of H2O. What's going on, Mario in LA?
What's going on, brother? Well, we have a bit of a heat wave this week, so I hate to rub it into people in Chicago, but it's we're in the 90s all week, so it's been kind of hot.
Well, let me tell you, when I was there last week, it was freezing, and
I
I'm
know.
from Chicago.
I had to laugh about that, actually. You know,
everybody was in sweaters and jeans, and it was so confusing. I brought all the wrong clothes. Should have checked the weather. But speaking of checking the weather, a lot of stuff going on in our industry, a lot of interesting stuff. One of the most important things that I've been fighting for since day one, over a year, has been the FMC and how they are to step in and regulate the ocean transportation industry. It's come out. I think the bill has been passed to go for a vote up to the Senate. So if this passes, there's going to be a lot of changes. How do you feel about government? How do you feel about government stepping in to into this market? I mean, this is going to be a big one.
I gotta be honest. I'm actually kind of happy that the FMC is finally stepping up. Because I think many times that everybody knows the FMC is involved and there's all these regulations, and as a freight forwarder, you have to follow all these rules and all that kind of stuff. So it's always very paperwork heavy and very bureaucratic on that front, right? But I never felt like the FMC really was supporting the freight forwarders or helping the shippers, right? That part I always felt like was a little bit missing. And I feel like this is the first time since I've been around in the last 20 years or so where the FMC is actually stepping up and saying, hey, this is not right. There should be something happening, or there should be something more happen. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and I get in a lot of disputes with people because they think that the FMC really can't do anything. And that is true. So the initial reason for the FMC was to regulate certain trade lanes with the United States so that it could control it. A lot of people also don't understand that ocean is very regulated, so that when you do book shipments that are ocean, you have to file that with the Federal Maritime Commission. Now, what's really, really nice, Mario, what's really, really nice is there's 6 really, really big topics and that are very important in this bill that we should talk about. The first one is that ocean carriers are going to be required to certify that late fees known in the maritime world as demurrage or detention charges will comply with federal regulations or face penalties. That's a big one. That means that
is a big one, and I gotta be honest that I think that out of all the issues, that the FMC should look at, I'm glad that they put detention and demurrage on the top of their list, because there is millions of dollars being spent every month on detention and demurrage, and I feel like, especially on detention, there's very little help on the FMC's front or the carrier front, right? And we all know detention is really no true hard cost, right? It's something that the carriers are charging to make money on, and they really have revenue revenue generating departments, which are their detention departments. Demurrage, I get it, it's support. But I got to say, man, I'm excited that the FMC is going to look at that.
I do too. I'm really excited they're stepping in and actually putting, some feet to the fire, because this unregulated Yahoo Wild Western type of mentality needs to change. Now, second one, shift burden of proof regards to reasonableness of detention or demurrage charges from invoiced party to the ocean carrier. That is huge.
Yeah.
That is big. So there has to be reasonable reasons to be charged. You can't just say, I'm going to charge you and then have no reason to do it.
Well, and in many cases, you're being charged and you don't find out till like 6 weeks later, and all of a sudden you get a surprise invoice from an ocean carrier, for $80,000 or $90,000, and you're like, wow, I can't go back to my client now 6 weeks later. By the way, something happened 6 weeks ago and I got charged for this. I think many times the freight forwarders are eating those fees.
They are, and they're losing a ton of money. They're losing a ton of money. So I don't want to just wrap up. I mean, we got a few more here. Another one is require ocean common carriers to report to the FMC each calendar year quarter on total of imports and export tonnage and 20-foot equivalent units loaded empty per vessel that makes it to the ports in the United States. That's also something big. So we're creating a sense.
I mean, that one is probably, I would probably least important for me, but yeah, it's definitely helpful. Yeah.
Sure. All right. Here's another one. A very important one. Authorize the FMC to self-initiate investigations of ocean common carrier business practices and apply and enforce measures as appropriate. That is very vague and very dangerous. So that's the one that makes me a little nervous because
Yeah, I feel like the FMC is overstepping the boundaries there a little bit,
yeah,
because
I
I
agree.
mean, everybody's beating up the carriers right now because they're making a ton of money, but let's also remember the last 20 years that we're making any money, right?
Absolutely.
And is it fair to the ocean carriers to be regulated so much right now that's gonna stall business, right? That would be my only concern on that one.
Absolutely. So I mean, those are all the points that they came up with. I mean, there's other ones that are also very important. But one of the ones that I did notice too was that this bill is also going to be protecting a lot of our farmers because our farmers are suffering because of the price of shipping. It really offsets a lot of their costs. So this is
Right.
something that's going to be helping really the heartland of America, which is our farmers, which by the way, I don't want to be the one that, mentions this, but daylight savings no longer gone. Why? Did you know that farmers never change their times? Never. You can't do it to cattle. Little piece of information, but that is also something that's very important is we have to protect definitely our agricultural world here in the United States. So it protects it, which is really nice. Now, one thing that really brings a little bit of light into the FMC is now the FMC, even though they will be able to investigate, there is also a probe out right now that the major steamship lines have been sent papers to supply and how they actually came up with their rates. How did they come up with the increase in rates? That is going to be something that I'm going to be very excited to talk to you about when the results come out. What are you thinking? Are you thinking that there's going to be a lot of Pandora boxes opening up here in the next couple of years?
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the FMC is going to handle this because I always feel like there's somewhat of an open market for getting space and a freight rate. So there might be, I don't know, a base rate of $9,500 from Shanghai to LA today. The question is, are you going to get space on that, right? When
Right.
you need the space. So
Right.
I'm curious on how that's going to be managed because at the end of the day, there's supply and demand, and if there's an over demand and under supply, I feel like the FMC can do whatever they want to do.
Right.
Freight rates are still going to go up, and people are going to pay more to get on the ship,
Yep.
right? Because their product is going to be more expensive. But I think all this that we always talk about, I think that's the major driver in the inflation, right?
Yep.
And I read a really interesting article on the Wall Street Journal that said that biggest driver for the inflation is supply chain issues.
That's right.
Meaning it's freight rate related, which is crazy.
Mario, I've been saying that now a year. You can go to my videos, go all the way back to 1 year from today, and you will see I've posted a video that said that you are going to see inflation like you've never seen it. Boom! Here it is. You're welcome. Gracias. I hope you listened and I hope you paid attention. All right. So I know we're running out of time. One thing that I also want to make sure that we talk about, Mario, something very important that's going to be happening in your backyard. Your backyard, Mario.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I hear talks that there might be a strike in April with the ILA. What are your senses feeling over there?
I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't heard anything that a strike is supposed to happen. All that I know is that the contracts are up and they're going to be renegotiated here pretty soon. And obviously, there's a lot of leverage with how busy the ports are these days. And it's probably, for the union, a very good time to negotiate this because they have a lot of leverage. Right. But it also scares me at the same time to see, what's going to happen.
It's going to be a bloodbath, Mario. I think. What were you going to say?
Yeah, we'll see, right? And at the end of the day, we got to realize. I think they haven't renegotiated for 4 years, right? I think 2018 was the last time when they negotiated, if I remember correctly.
That is correct.
And obviously, there's a lot of things happened since then. that increased the living, right? The
Sure.
living expenses, especially in Southern California. I mean, we know. I mean, you've been out here 2 weeks ago. You know how expensive rent is, how expensive gas is. I mean, we're over $6 now in LA. You know, some places even over $7. You know, so and I think that's going to play a big role in the negotiation, that they're going to say, hey, the employees are making now X amount less because of inflation, and they need an adjustment for that. Plus, all the ocean carriers are making a ton of money. So I think it's going to be a really interesting negotiation, you know. So.
I think the lines are going to have to start paying for some of this. There's going to have to be some type of offset. A 7% increase in inflation is just too much. These negotiations are going to be tough, because if the costs are going to go up at the ports to handling, everything else is going to go up. It is a chain reaction. So it'll be interesting to see. We'll follow up, I guess, next week when we get a little bit more information and a little bit closer to the big day. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so I want to thank everybody again for supporting us on H2O. Again, please keep in mind, follow us on YouTube. We have finally hit 1,200 followers. Please feel free to subscribe, and we will see you next week on our new episode of H2O.
Thank you, guys.
You got it.